Children, today we're going to start with a new chapter from your English reader. Chapter number 5, Gulliver's Travels. This is an autobiography of a sailor. Now, students, do you know what is an autobiography? Well, if a person tells the story of his life in his own words, it is called an autobiography. Basically, it's an account of a person's life written by that person himself. The subject of the story is the author. Now, here the author is Jonathan Swift. Jonathan Swift was a very famous author. He has written various books, but he's best known for writing Gulliver's Travels. Now, Gulliver's Travel is a fictional narrative. Fictional narrative means it is an imaginative story. It was invented by the author himself. It didn't happen in real. As you see on your screens, that's the book written by Jonathan Swift, Gulliver's Travels. Now, children, have you heard of Christopher Columbus? He was a very famous sailor who sailed across the world in a ship in search of India. But then, what did he discover? He reached America. Now, some people are adventurous like Columbus. What is adventurous? Adventurous is when you're willing to take risk or you want to try out, something new, or you're a little daring, you're looking for some excitement, some new experience. That is being adventurous. And then there are other people who are adventurous, but only in their thoughts and not in their actions. So one such person was Jonathan Swift. He was an Englishman who was very imaginative. He wrote a delightful story of a sailor who visited strange and unique lands in his quest for adventure. So let us read to find out more. I'm only 42 years old. Still, I have already had many strange adventures in my travels to far-off lands of the world. Strange adventures aren't what you expect from someone named Dr. Lemuel Gulliver. But being a doctor in London just didn't satisfy me. Traveling to distant lands in the world always fascinated me. So after qualifying as a doctor, I signed up as a ship's doctor and spent 3.5 years sailing around Europe. Now, Dr. Lemuel Gulliver, he was a famous doctor, but he did not want to practice being a doctor. He wanted to travel. He wanted to see distant places in the world. Being a doctor did not fascinate him. It did not attract him. It did not interest him. So he signed up as a ship's doctor. Now, what is a ship's doctor, children? When you fall sick, whom do you go to? You go to a doctor and he attends to you. Similarly, when you're on board, when you're on a ship, and if someone falls sick or a crew member falls sick, they are attended by a ship's doctor. So, here Lemuel Gulliver was a ship's doctor. I accepted an offer from the captain of a ship named Antelope to be the ship's doctor on a voyage to the South Sea. Now, Gulliver, he wanted to travel. He did not just want to be at one place. So, he accepted the offer made to him by a captain of a ship. And what was the ship's name? It was Antelope. And they went on a voyage. Voyage is when you're traveling to places through by the sea. Now, we set sail from Bristol, England on May 4th, 1699. And after peacefully crossing the South Sea, we were hit by a violent storm off the west coast of Australia. Poor food and too much work while braving the storm caused the death of 12 of our crew. Now, Gulliver, he set out on a voyage, and from where did he sail? They started from Bristol, England. And after peacefully crossing the South Sea, peacefully means without any disturbance. When they crossed the South Sea, they were hit by a violent storm, by a very powerful storm. And what happened? Now the crew member, they had very little food to eat, and they were braving the storm. They were though facing it with courage, but they could not. 12 of the crew members, they could not survive. They died. Now you see there's a ship on the screen, and that's a doctor on board, and that's a ship in middle of a very powerful storm. Now 12 of the crewmen died and weakened the rest. So when the wind drove us onto some rocks and split the ship apart, only 6 seamen, myself included, had enough strength to get a lifeboat down into the sea and row clear of the ship and rocks. Now, when the winds drove, means when the winds pushed the ship against the rock, what happened? The ship split, it broke, and only 6 seamen, including Gulliver, they got into a lifeboat. Now, what is a lifeboat? Children, lifeboats are basically small boats. They are there to rescue people in distress. Sometimes they are sent from the land, and sometimes they are on the ship itself. You just need to pull it down. Like I'll show you a picture here. That's the ship which has split, and that's a lifeboat which is pulled down to the sea, and you can just move away. Similarly, they row clear means they moved away using a boat. Suddenly, a strong blast of wind from the north overturned a little boat and scattered my companions. I never laid my eyes on them again. Now, because of the strong winds, the lifeboat that they were traveling, it too overturned, means it just went upside down. And what happened? It scattered all the men, they were all over the sea. My companions, the people who were accompanying him, they were all over the sea, and I could never laid my eyes on them, means Gulliver could not even see them. I began swimming in whichever direction the wind and the waves pushed me. I don't know how many hours I spent struggling, but just when I was completely exhausted and water seemed to be filling my lungs, my feet suddenly touched bottom. Now, the lifeboat had flipped over, and to save himself, Gulliver started swimming, and he was so exhausted, he was so tired swimming, that then he found that water seemed to be filling his lungs, and he felt as if he is drowning. He was touching the bottom of the sea. I took in several mouthfuls of air and looked up to heaven. It must have been about 8 in the evening. The storm had decreased, and there was enough light to make out land about a mile away. I spent the next 2 hours trying to drag myself towards the shore. So he was swimming, but then he was so tired and exhausted. Suddenly, he could see that there was a land at a distance. Though it was dark, but he could see it. The storm had decreased, means the storm had reduced. So children, you can see on your screens, he was swimming, and then though it had become dark, but he could see a land at a distance. I was so weak and tired when I finally limped out of the sea that I dropped down on a patch of soft grass. Within moments, I was sound asleep. Now, Gulliver was so tired swimming, when he reached the shore, he limped out of the sea. Limped means when you're having difficulty in walking. So when he reached there, he was so tired, there was a patch of soft grass. He just fell on the grass, and then he went off to sleep, as you can see on your screens. So children, I hope you like the story and you'll read the chapter by yourself once again.